Hey guys, welcome back to the Woods Tree Farm. I'm Phil, and today I want to give you a little update on how our cover crops are doing and the little soil improvement project that I've talked about before. And if you aren't familiar with what we're trying to do out here with this little soil improvement project, I will link a couple videos in this video's description. You can go back and get caught up. But we have heavy clay and heavily compacted soils here, and I have this area back here that I'm trying to dramatically change the soil structure and composition, and we've done quite a few things. We brought in wood chips and we've planted a number of cover crops, and we've tilled all that into the soil, and now we have this cover crop over the winter. I'll give you an up close on it here in a minute, and we'll check out two other cover crops that I have here on the property for future plantings. And while we're sitting right here next to these white stakes, I'll show you these Carolina sapphires that have been in the ground less than a year now. This is actually the first time I've come over here in probably 2 months to get a close look at these trees. Whenever the last time this was mowed, that was the last time I was over here. And I can see we've gotten quite a bit of deer damage. This one, the whole top was rubbed off. Looks like these branches here are gonna die, so we'll need to clip this down here and try to get that trained back up. That's not the first one I've seen. There are several others. Yeah, so when we put these trees in the ground, they were little tiny liners. They came in these like little 2.5-inch plastic pots, and they might have only been 6 to 8 inches tall. And I was apprehensive to put them in the ground, but we went ahead and did it, and then just had to, keep up with the weed control so they didn't get lost out here last year. But it looks like, many of these are thriving. I think out of the 100 that we've planted, we've only lost maybe 4 that, just didn't take well last year. They succumbed to the drought that we had in the summertime. And the rest of these seem to be doing pretty good. Many of them are over 2 feet tall, so I'm really pleased with that. And many of them are starting to really branch out and fill in. So next season, we should see some really good growth on a lot of these. Here's more deer damage. So that got rubbed. So this whole thing here needs to get cut out. Here's one that's nicer looking. About 1.5 feet tall. So this cover crop here, we've got kind of this L-shaped patch that goes around these Carolina sapphire trees, and it's about 1 acre in total. It is doing really well. It's this everything is this rich green color. All of the leafy stuff that's in here is rape, and obviously the freeze in the winter kind of kills that off, and it's starting to look a little ugly. We actually had some warm temps last week, so some of it is starting to like shoot off some new growth, but all through here is just a mix of oats and rye and peas and clover and then the rape. And I was hoping by doing that blend we would have stuff sprouting or growing all through the season and into the spring, and then we could till this in and do something else here. And of course, once we get through the winter as well, I would like to do another soil test and kind of see where we're at. But this is doing really, really well, and I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing. It's hard for me to know if this is thriving because we had done all of the soil amendments and because we had done 2 previous cover crops, or maybe I just got the fertilizer just right on this patch that I didn't get on the other patch. But we'll compare what's here with what is on the other patch, which I just planted the first thing. Like we took some just fallow ground that had nothing but grasses and weeds on it since we bought the property, and we planted something up front. And basically it was the same seed mix, but it doesn't look nearly as robust as this does back here. Now this section looks completely different because we planted something different, but this was our flower patch last year. And when I mowed down the flower patch, before I mowed it all down, I spread a different mix. It was just some annual rye grass that we had left over, and there was some a little bit of clover that I mixed in. As I'm walking through this patch, I don't really see much clover. I do see plenty of the annual rye, but it's still not coming in really, really healthy looking. It actually looks pretty pale in many places. If you can see down there where it's darker green though, that darker green section was where last winter we had a little micro food plot, cover crop. There were turnips and radishes and oats and rye that were grown into that patch that I plowed under in the spring, and then we had sunflowers out there, and then we mowed those down, and then I planted that stuff. And you can see how much more green everything looks over there. So anyway, what is the power of a cover crop? I think that's a good example. That other patch that is really, really green is a good example. This here has never had a robust cover crop on it. We've only planted the flowers and whatnot, and I didn't add any extra fertilizer to this year. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and double check the documentation. So it looks to me like this plot up here is really lacking, especially when compared to that little patch over there. It's a little like 30 foot by 60 foot patch over there is way more green than this area up here. Now we are back up at the front of the property, and this is the area that will be our 2022 flower patch. And I planted the same seed mix up here that I did back at the first patch that I showed you. And we can see the rape is coming in well, and we can see up close clover is coming in well, but the rye and the oats are not nearly as green and not nearly as healthy looking as they were back in the first patch. So in last year's flower patch, which I just showed you, where we only planted annual rye and clover, you can see nothing was really coming in that great over there, except that small patch that was further down the hill that had a cover crop the previous year. And I made some commentary earlier this year because we had some black oil sunflower seeds planted over in what was that little green rectangle, and they were doing remarkably well compared to some black oil sunflowers that we had planted elsewhere on the property. So anyway, this is all to share, just some observations that I'm having about cover cropping. And I think the more rotations of cover crop you do and the more organic matter you can get into your soil, it seems to really help year after year the plant life really take off. So this is going to be our 2022 flower patch. I'm hoping this cover crop helps it do well. We'll soil test here in several weeks from now, maybe about a month and a half from now, and kind of see where we're at, and then we'll probably do a springtime cover crop, maybe a buckwheat or something on this patch as well before we get into planting our flowers for the season. So we'll wait and see what the soil test results are. We'll make a plan, but I'm certain we're going to do something here to try to continue to build the soil, since this was just converted from just an ugly overgrown field to this just this past fall. So that'll be something that you guys can look forward to in a future video. Well, thanks for spending a little bit of time with me. If you got any questions about how we're trying to manage our property and the different things that we do in our property, you can leave those below. I am learning all of this as I go. I'm in my third year now. I've learned a lot where I'm at, but I am by no means an expert, and I try to make that clear on my videos. I'm just sharing what I'm observing, sharing what I'm doing, sharing what I'm learning, and of course when something doesn't work, I'm sharing that as well, which, there's plenty of that to go around. So thanks for spending a little time. I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye-bye.